It really is this union that has been the rock and the foundation of so many of our efforts in safety and health. The steelworkers of the OCAW fighting in the trenches in the late 1960s to win the Occupational Safety and Health Act. We had the rubber workers, again, in the forefront of doing much of the research that was done and the efforts to establish what the hazards were and what kind of control measures were needed. The OCAW, steel workers, rubber workers, and others leading the effort for those basic protections on asbestos and lead and benzene and the right to know, and winning the protections not only in the occupational safety and health arena, but the mine safety and health area as well. And so when we look back, or when I look back over those 32 years, it is really quite remarkable the progress we have made, the gains that have been won, and that record of effort has had real accomplishments and made a huge difference in the lives of working people here in this country. We have made tremendous progress. All of that was through hard work and through struggle. And over the last 3 decades, 4 decades, that struggle has gotten harder and harder. Thought we had perhaps seen the worst with Ronald Reagan and the Republicans in Congress. But then we had the election of 2000 and the election of George W. Bush. The first major piece of legislation that he signed that George W. Bush to was a legislation to roll back, to repeal, wipe off the books, an ergonomic standard that we had fought 10 years to pass. We basically only had a couple of things that we were able to do. And one of the things was a standard on the cancer-causing chemical hexavalent chromium, which this union sued for, won, and finally got adopted in 2006. But it was only because of going to court and challenging and getting an order that OSHA had to protect workers from this hazardous chemical. And the other thing, the other protection we were able to get was after many years, a clarity in the law that if a worker has to wear personal protective equipment under an OSHA standard, that an employer has to pay for it. Discipline programs where workers who were hurt on the job got a warning. A second injury, they may be, told to go home and suspended for a couple of days. Third injury, out the door. Didn't matter what the problem was, didn't matter what the root cause was, it was the worker's fault. And so this essentially has replaced, in so many workplaces, an approach to safety and health which is focusing on the hazards, focusing on getting those hazards corrected, and instead putting the blame, putting the responsibility back on workers, place that certainly it doesn't belong. So that is what we were facing now after these more than 8 years of erosion in safety and health and attacks on workers. But finally, we are in a position with the election of President Barack Obama, having a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate. It really is the first time in 14 years where there is a political environment where it is possible to make some gains and to change the direction of the country. The first piece of legislation that Barack Obama signed was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. So we have an opportunity here. We've got this friendlier, pro-worker political environment. But our window may be short. As we can see, there are many that are trying to shut it down already, maybe 3.5 years. And so it's up to us to seize this opportunity, to get ourselves organized, and to get to work. We have to make those policies and those practice of blaming the worker illegal, so that we can get back into the business of protecting workers on the job. The OSHA law has never been improved. It was a pretty good law when it was passed in 1970. But it is 40 years old. There are still millions of workers in this country that have no legal protection. Over 8 million public sector workers, including public sector workers here in the state of Texas, are not covered by the OSHA law. And that's an outrage that in this time that those workers don't even have basic safety and health rights on the job. We have to strengthen the enforcement of the job safety law. The enforcement and the penalties for violations of OSHA, even serious violations, are really quite pathetic. I think right now the average for a serious violation of the law is about $1,000. The median penalty, the typical penalty when a worker is killed after all the settlements take place and all the bargaining is $3,700, $3,700. Protection of healthcare workers and others from infectious diseases. There are no standards that exist to protect healthcare workers from airborne infectious diseases. Because it's up to us to change the direction of the country, to give workers a voice, and to improve and strengthen the safety and health protections to stop the unnecessary workplace deaths, injuries, and illnesses across this country. Thank you very much.